Hey all, Chris from ScienceofSpeed. I'm excited to introduce to you today the ScienceofSpeed Intercooler Upgrade Kit made by our partners at CNR Racing. These intercoolers use the same cores used in modern F1 racing, and they feature billet machine tanks that allow direct fitment into the NSX to replace the factory intercoolers. So let's get these intercoolers installed, then load the car into our dyno and see how well they perform. All right, so we've loaded the second generation NSX into our dyno test cell, and before we do the baseline testing, I want to talk a little bit about the way we dyno test the second generation NSXs. Now, we've been working for some time on how to test these cars in an accurate manner that produces reliable results. The reason being, these cars are incredibly sensitive to two things: temperature and battery state of charge. For temperature, this cell has large intakes here and a large ducted fan about 40 inches in diameter that move a lot of airflow around the car and also remove the exhaust from the car. Now, specifically for spot cooling, we have this very large blower here that directs a lot of airflow directly into the radiator and the front heat exchangers. Toward the rear of the car, we have these spot blowers that are directed directly at the intercoolers. And that allows us to simulate as best as possible road conditions so that we can get accurate, reliable results. Now, it's not as good as being on the street driving 60 plus miles an hour, but this is one of the better test facilities I've seen to produce those accurate results. Now, I talked also about battery state of charge. What that means is the amount of available energy that's in the hybrid batteries to power the two front electric motors and the single electric motor in the rear. Now, if you deplete the battery below about 50%, you lose about 20 horsepower from those motors. So the results can be easily influenced by the battery state of charge. So what we do is we monitor the battery state of charge and we make sure that each test is started at least 75% because that produces consistent output from the motors. Now, the way we're going to conduct these tests is on the first day, we're going to do the baseline test. Then we're going to remove the car from the cell. Our technicians are going to change the intercoolers from the factory intercoolers to the CNR intercoolers. And then we're going to bring the car back into the test cell and test it on the second day. The reason we're doing that is here in Phoenix, we're having temperature swings of about 15 degrees from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. So we're testing them about the same time of the day so that we can get consistent results. We're looking for not more than a 2-degree difference in ambient temperature so we get those accurate results. So let's start by doing that baseline test, and then we'll check the results, bring the car out of the test cell, bring it back, rerun it the second day, and then compare results. Let's get started. All right, so we've finished the testing of the factory intercoolers and the CNR Racing intercoolers, which are currently installed. We have some interesting results to share. So first off, let's compare factory intercoolers to the CNR Racing intercoolers. We didn't expect a big gain because the factory intercoolers actually appear to flow pretty well, but seem like they're not as efficient as they should be for consistent cooling. And the results back that up. So first off, comparing the factory intercooler, which is the red line, and the CNR Racing intercooler, which is the blue line, you can see there was a gain of about 5 to 10 horsepower above 5,000 RPM. The second graph that I want to share with you is the CNR Racing intercooler. So the way that we did these tests is 6 consistent runs, again making sure that temperature was in an allowable threshold and battery state of charge was within an acceptable state of charge. You can see that the runs are fairly consistent. Actually, they're within 2 to 3 horsepower all the way to run number 6, at which time there was only a difference of about 5 horsepower. That's pretty impressive considering we're loading the car up all the way from 2,000 RPM to 7,500 RPM. The third graph I want to share with you is the factory intercoolers. Now you can see they're kind of all over the place. On the first run we have a consistent number, somewhat similar, 5 horsepower lower, but pretty consistent compared to the CNR intercoolers. But every run after that, runs 2 through 6, you're losing horsepower. Even on the second run you lose about 5 horsepower, and within run 2, 3, 4, you're losing about 40 horsepower. Run number 6, the final run, there's a loss of 50 horsepower and even more here at the tail end. Pretty sharp drop off in power. That might be because there's a certain temperature threshold that the ECU is seeing, or perhaps it's detecting onset of knock. So although we did see a 5 to 10 horsepower gain just with the intercoolers in the best condition, really what I think was most interesting is that with the CNR intercoolers in the same testing parameters, we're preventing the loss of more than 50 horsepower between runs 1 and 6. So those are some pretty impressive results today from the CNR Racing intercoolers. Comparing the factory intercoolers to the CNR Racing intercoolers, we saw an increase of horsepower of 5 to 10 horsepower. Now, I think what was more impressive is that using the JB4's built-in data logging abilities, we were able to show that with the CNR Racing intercoolers over those 6 dyno pools, there was an increase of temperature of only 3 degrees. However, comparing to the factory intercoolers, there was a rise of nearly 25 degrees. Now, ultimately, what that translated to is with cooler charge, you get more horsepower. With the CNR Racing intercoolers, there was only a negligible loss of horsepower over those 6 hard dyno pools, but with the factory intercoolers, we lost 50 and more horsepower after we did the 6 pools. That was pretty impressive. So we hope you've enjoyed this video. For more details on these results and more information on the CNR Racing intercoolers, check out the website at ScienceofSpeed.com.